Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar focused on mobile field management on heavy civil or infrastructure construction projects. My name is Rich Humphrey. I'm the VP of Marketing. I've been in B2W. I've been with B2W for about a year. Prior to that, I have about 20 years of experience in the heavy civil construction space, starting as a project manager for a large construction firm. And I'll be joined today in this webinar by Tom Willey, B2W's Senior Solutions Engineer, who's been with the company since 2006. So from an agenda perspective, we really want to start today by looking at some of the high-level trends and challenges that are making the move to web and mobile applications and devices important to the heavy civil construction industry and civil contractors in general. We're going to be discussing the opportunities or advantages that are delivered by mobile technology and solutions in terms of really a framework and structure around data collection workflows, how do you do smarter and better data access, and ultimately turn data into better decisions on the project job site. Tom will then show how B2W solutions are leveraged to take advantage of these technology opportunities, and really how we're dramatically improving and helping field workflows and empowering the field workforce. If we have time, we'll go through a few case studies, as well as leaving time for some Q&A. So let's start with the trends, challenges, and opportunities. So first, infrastructure projects are complex. They're getting larger, they're getting more difficult, they're not getting smaller. They never start with a blank sheet of paper. There's always a set of existing conditions, whether it's underground utilities, as well as changing conditions for the job site that need to be managed. Often the key to delivering a successful project is limiting the disruptions that we see to the surrounding environment while we build that project. We're also seeing an increase in expectations from the owners and the public, including expectation for contractors to get more done with less, while also driving increased safety and quality. Additionally, owners are driving initiatives and mandates such as the FWHA's e-construction initiative that is really focused on digitizing construction processes for highway projects, basically eliminating paper for the project and on the job site. But as a result of this complexity, we're also seeing that up to 50% of projects fail to meet budget and fail to be completed on schedule. The industry really, as you can see, can't meet these challenges by doing things the same way, following the same processes, using the same technology that they've used in the past, whether it's legacy systems. But yet, what we see is the industry is one of the slowest to adopt new technology and automate processes. In fact, if you look at the bottom right of this slide, you'll see that it's in fact the last to digitize workflows only ahead of agriculture and hunting. So this clearly has got to change. And the result of this lack of adoption and lack of standardization is flat productivity, especially when you compare it against other industries that have digitized and automated and leveraged technology like the manufacturing industry that have seen nearly a 2x productivity gain over what we see over the last several years in the construction industry. It's also all about data, right? And for construction companies, we've never had more access and availability to data than we do today. The sources and volumes of information that can be made available through technology advances are just continue to increase, specifically as the industry moves away from paper and taking advantages of digital data sources. So this presents both an opportunity and a challenge, as most of this data is siloed, resulting in poor data utilization. So it's data that's disconnected, so it's sitting in paper, or it's in legacy systems or file formats that don't talk to each other, or it's just not accessible by everyone that needs it. And it's also not timely and can be often outdated. So most of the industry agrees that the better data utilization will have a better result for on decisions and project outcomes. And in fact, some of the data is up here on the right. We see in a recent survey that 4 out of 5 executives agree that if they could harness their data in a better way, they'd have a stronger business. And if they can make business information and project data available to their entire staff, particularly in the field, they could see 20 to 25% increases in productivity and efficiency. So, today, unfortunately, still many of the construction firms still use paper processes and legacy processes to manage their workflows. They often run into issues related to the availability of data and information that result in a suboptimized business performance. And some of these issues are kind of listed here, lag time. So if we're not leveraging technology, if we're relying on people to take down and report on issues or daily progress in the field using check sheets or manual paper processes, it takes a while for those paper data to end up in a format that can be leveraged by other people. So you end up with a time lag. You also end up with issues around access and error-prone data entry as you re-enter data multiple times. And ultimately, because the data is not structured, it's harder to report on it and make business decisions around it. The opportunity, however, to go to a more digital process in the field and leverage mobile devices and applications is to drive data that is more real-time, consistent, and structured format so that project outcomes can be optimized based on faster data-driven decisions. So why is this a big deal? Why should we be thinking about this today? So it's clear based on what I said that there's lots of challenges and that we need to change what we're doing. We need to adopt new processes and new technologies in order to meet the challenges. And web and mobile technologies are really poised to help transform the way the civil job site is run. And some of the key indicators that we see on these three spectrums of technology, process, and people are on the fact that really there's more mobile devices today in the world than there are people. What that's saying is that we now have a new platform for delivering solutions that most of your field staff are actually familiar with because they use it in their day-to-day lives. We also had a recent study where we saw that 95% of civil contractors see mobile technology as critical to their business going forward. And from a process perspective, 75% of them are planning in the near future to invest in digital processes such as e-construction. Finally, we're seeing companies that have adopted mobile workflows have been able to empower their field staff to work more efficiently and collaboratively. And some of the other additional benefits have become a workforce that is now more motivated because they can spend more time doing their actual job and less time filling out paper-based processes and forms. I want to talk a little bit about the actual workflows that web and mobile really lends itself to really well to. And the first is around field progress tracking, potentially daily logs, safety and quality inspections, equipment maintenance tracking, and project data pushing out to the field. These are opportunities to empower your field staff to make better decisions and work more efficiently. I'll talk a little bit more about that when Tom gets on. But before I hand it over to Tom, I'd like to introduce this framework in a little more detail. This framework that describes the advantages and opportunities of web and mobile technologies to the civil project. And it first starts with data collection workflows. And if we can leverage mobile devices and applications that are available for these mobile devices, we really can.
I had one slide, sorry.
Oh, not a problem. Tom got a little overzealous, or either I hit the keyboard. So what I was saying is, if you can leverage mobile devices and applications for data collection, it's really a way to deliver a much higher quality level of data in real time that could be shared more easily, leveraging just the nature of a mobile device out in the field. We're also, unlike a paper-based process, a digital process for data collection is automated and structured so that the data that you do collect can be collected more efficiently because information that's already known or has been input before doesn't have to be input again. So forms are filled out more quickly. And then because you can structure the way people enter data, it's much more useful on the back end to do business analytics, which we'll talk about. So next, it's about data accessibility. And that means putting data in the hands of the right people at the right time so that they're empowered to deliver the best results. The first place to start with this is a unifying data in a single source of truth that's purpose-built for the specific user, so they're able to get access to the data that they need to do their job. It's also about leveraging the device itself. Most of these mobile devices have GPS and other sensors that can make the information location-based. So depending on where someone is, they can access that particular information. And last is around, taking advantage of just the connectivity of mobile devices to the web and cloud that enable this real-time access and collaboration on data. So once the information, if you're connected, once information is input into the device, everyone in the field, office, and shop get to see that information. And so basically you are able to connect those three different departments that are driving and supporting the project delivery. And finally, around data decisions, moving all the data, when you move all the data to a digital format in a single source of truth, you're able to do a much greater degree of reporting and business intelligence and dashboards. And ultimately, this helps managers to quickly analyze project performance and make quicker, again, better database decisions. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Tom Willey, who's going to talk about how B2W is delivering against this promise.
All right, thanks, Rich. So what I'll do now, I'm going to make myself the presenter here. We're just going to switch over screens, although I'm on the same slide as Rich is. So I'm going to be transitioning over. These concepts that Rich was describing are pretty powerful. And what we'll do, I have just a few more slides to kind of set the stage, but I'll be looking at those three different buckets really across the platforms and the solutions that B2W software can provide. So kind of making that transition from concept to the actual practical application of that, we look at data collection. Smarter data collection means giving those people in the field or wherever a flexible, simple tool that they can capture whatever data they need. So also expanding the kind of data that they can capture. And then that data access, being able to access the data wherever, whenever. And as part of the demonstration, you'll actually see how data can move from the field to the office and vice versa instantly. And then those data decisions are really going to be based on not just aggregating all the data together, but using tools so that the data can really tell the story about what's happening with the business. So we'll be looking at all of those things. Starting first, I just want to kind of give you a model of what we'll be looking at. So if you look at this as kind of a microcosm of the construction environment, we talk about data access from all these potential different places. So if you look at field operations, it's going to be things like field tracking, so the production staff being able to gather real-time information about how the job is performing. And potentially on that same job site, you might need to capture other information like maintenance information, requests for maintenance to be performed on equipment, and really a whole host of other things. Just the amount of data that people need to capture these days is growing all the time. Things like inspections or safety forms or QA forms and just all of this type of data that might need to be captured quickly out in the field, but then be available back in the office. So again, easy for the guys to capture and then instantly available in the office so that other parts of the business can act on that data, but then also getting business intelligence, tying all the data together. So how are we going to do that? Well, what we'll do here is just very briefly kind of show you the B2W solutions. And here's all the solutions that we provide: estimate, dispatching, track, equipment maintenance, and inform. We'll really be focusing on just these three pieces here just to kind of give you a flavor for what we can provide. But all the solutions that we provide: B2W Estimate, which is the cost estimating and bidding package; B2W Dispatch, which is soon to become B2W Schedule. That's a logistics and planning tool. Then there's B2W Track, which is the field tracking and analysis module, so being able to track production, see what's happening on those jobs. B2W Maintain, which is the heavy equipment maintenance module, and then B2W Inform, which is an enterprise forms builder and data collection tool. But one of the reasons that we can empower those three buckets that Rich was describing, smarter data collection, easy data access, database decisions, is because they share a unified database. So dispatch, track, maintain, and inform, all the operations pieces and inform, can leverage a single point of data, that single kind of source of truth that Rich was describing. So it dramatically reduces the amount of time and effort that companies have to spend even just creating a mechanism by which they can share data, because they're all pulling from the same hymn sheet. They also have a very powerful mobile tablet platform to pull from. So you'll see this. Track and Maintain actually have a purpose-built mobile app that allows you to quickly capture that data. And Inform is a browser-based tool that lets you capture really all kinds of information in different ways. So just a couple more slides here on what those things mean. For Track, the Track piece of it is, again, a field capture and analysis tool, which is designed to let companies put a simple tool out into the field that lets them capture things like employee hours, equipment hours, production quantities, materials used. You have a lot of flexibility about how much of this you choose to capture, but it's real time. So it gets that information and compiles it and sends it back to the office. And it also empowers things like being able to do time cards or being able to export time to payroll. We'll also see in that spirit of sharing data or data access, users from Track have the ability to create what are called repair requests. So they can actually send information directly to Maintain that's useful. And they can also leverage that mobile platform, that tablet device, to do things like signature capture. So being able to capture kind of legally binding documents in the field that help facilitate the construction process. Next, we'll look at the Maintain piece. That also has a very strong purpose-built mobile app. And that really allows you to extend out the Maintain element, so that break fix and preventive maintenance work order management, to mechanics in the field. So the Maintain element is all about being able to have preventive maintenance programs generate automatically, as well as being able to receive requests from Track users or from the field, and then managing that and pushing it out to the mechanics via that mobile platform. So it allows folks out in the field that are mechanics to very quickly record what they're doing, what work orders they've been working on, and similar to Track, push that information back to the office to power things like time cards for payroll purposes or capture data. It also allows them to leverage data from the office, access to things like equipment, information, plans, specifications, that kind of stuff. And then last but not least, when we look at the Inform portion of it, it's a very powerful and flexible enterprise forms generator and business intelligence engine. So what that really means, it's kind of the generic nature of that description is really kind of undercutting the power of it, but it allows you to really create these purpose-built solutions for very specific data capture needs. So for example, you can use Inform to be a very full-functioned safety solution where it can actually capture safety information, report back to you on the safety of your organization. You can also use it to create a very full-featured inspection system, so you can distribute inspection documents. So it's really many solutions in one that all allow you to capture data from essentially any device. Again, Inform is a browser-based system, so you could capture it from either a tablet or even a phone or a laptop, really access from anywhere. So what we'll do now is we'll jump into the software and we'll actually look at how we do those things. And if you look at the flow of how we'll cover this, we'll kind of keep to those three buckets that Rich described about smarter data collection as being the first piece of it. Then we'll circle back, and once we've collected the data, we'll look at how we can access it and how we can make better decisions off that data. So we'll kind of combine those two buckets together into access and decisions. So I'm going to leave the world of PowerPoint here. And really what the first thing I'm going to do is bring up the mobile app, the tablet app. I'm going to bring up this tablet that I'm working on here. And what it's going to allow me to do is mirror on screen our mobile app. So here you'll see my iPad. I'll just kind of get rid of the PowerPoint in the background so it doesn't take up any space. So this is my iPad that's sitting in front of me here, and this is our mobile app. Now, as we go through the presentation, you'll see me log in and log out of the mobile app multiple times. It's a single app that allows me to leverage both track and maintain information. So again, it's designed for simplicity. I'm going to tap on the mobile app here, and I'm going to log in as a foreman. So one of the first areas that we'll look at for data capture is how field staff can use what we call a field log to capture almost anything that they would need in terms of production data. So I'm going to just scroll through and look at some of the field logs that I've been working on here. I'm going to go into a very specific field log. Now, what you're looking at on screen are many of the things that I could capture if I wanted to. So on the left-hand side, these are all sections of information that I could choose to turn on. But again, in that spirit of flexibility, many different companies have many different levels of detail that they need to capture. So we give you the ability to turn sections on or off. Some companies really only want to start by capturing production data, employee hours, equipment hours, etc. Others want to expand out to materials, etc. But the mobile platform gives you that ability. And again, flexible, smarter data capture really means that it should be simple to use, so it's accessible by the most number of people. So I can simply tap on a section here using my finger, and I could start to record data against it. I could record the quantities that I consumed. I could scroll down and enter in the number of hours. So I could say Bill Walker here spent either 6 hours or 5 hours. I just tap in the number of hours that I want. And I can record what it is that he's doing. Now, we'll look a little bit later on some of the other capabilities like signature. But in essence, you can capture both production information, and you can also capture things like time and materials too. So I might just be capturing the planned number of hours that I quoted out for production work. But if I wanted to, I have other sections here like time and materials where I could actually say, well, we had unexpected work for rock or street extension. And now I can be capturing both the quantities and the hours against, say, an estimate, but I could also be capturing really important hours for employees or equipment or subcontractors and materials that need to be billed back to the owner. And I'm capturing that data real time in the field. So now if I go and look at an employee, like say Bill Walker here, I can see that he's got 5 hours of production time, but I'm also recording his time and materials time as well against a given account. So now I can use the same platform out in the field to get real-time information on how an estimated job is performing, but I can also make it much easier to capture that revenue potential and have an owner sign off on information. So I'm going to do that now, or in just a moment or two, I'll show you how we can capture that sign-off. But there are other great things about the tablet that really, again, let you capture information. So one of those things would be the ability to capture photos. So a lot of times people will really need the ability to capture the job site conditions. And that has immediate impact on the business, whether it be for safety reasons or whether it be for being able to document what's happened for legal purposes. So I'm going to go to the attachments here, and I'm just going to add a photo. I'm just going to take a picture of my other screen here. I'm going to simulate having a job site there. So now someone from the field can take real-time photos about what they're seeing on the job site and include that as part of their daily report. So now, not only are you easing that process by which paper is coming back to the office as time cards, you don't have to wait for that lag, but now if there's something important about that job site, either the finished condition of it or if there was an accident or something else that needed to be documented, that could be instantly grabbed as part of the same log and transmitted back to the office. Other things that you can do in here as well, if I wanted to, I could also start to capture information like speech to text. So one of those other barriers to data collection is a lot of folks aren't really great typists, and it can be kind of hard to type out in the field. So we remove that barrier by letting them simply do speech to text. So I could use the keyboard to type in information, or I could simply tap on the microphone and say, this was the condition of the job site when we left. And then Siri is going to do all the work so that I can just type in everything that the boss needs to know about the job site without having to sit there and hunt and peck or just write that all out on a piece of paper. So we give you these kinds of abilities here. Now I'm going to validate and save this field log, and you'll see here it's uploading it. So we'll look at this field log and a lot of other field logs and other data, but in essence it's allowing you to capture that data in real time and then push it back to the office. It also allows you to, again, capture other things. So let's say that I was still working on the field log here, and I've captured some other important information, like those time and materials accounts. And I've gone through and said, yep, we've got all the time and materials things that we need. I could now say, well, I need to capture that signature. So I simply go up to the top here and say that I want the on-site representative of the owner's company to sign a T&M report. So now I can say, well, for the unexpected rock and for the street extension, I could simply have them sign a bill. And we also have a version of this that shuts off prices. So I could just capture employee and equipment time as well as materials and anything else that I've really done that day. But it means that in an electronic form factor, I could have and capture the signature for the owner saying, yes, this is the work that you performed. And then that signature is saved as a PDF. So it's a document that's now available as part of this field log, along with that picture that I took. So it's all contained in one vessel. And again, whenever I'm ready to, I could just validate that and upload it back to the server. So very, very simple data capture. It's just basically touch sensitive. You just tap, 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 and you can capture everything that you need for that day's work. So that's one piece of it. Next, what I'm going to do is from this same mobile app, I'm actually going to sign out, and I'm going to sign back in as a mechanic, though. So right now I was signed in as a foreman. Now I'm going to sign in as a mechanic. And what you'll see is literally the same mobile device, the same iPad, is now, instead of showing me field logs, I'm seeing work orders instead. So now a mechanic could go and borrow a tablet from a foreman, and they would be able to start working on anything. So I could just tap on the work order, and I'd be able to go to any work order items that have been assigned to me, and then I would be able to just start putting in hours against it. So just like a foreman was entering time for his crew, I could go in as a mechanic and say, well, I performed this function, whatever it might be. I completed the repair. And again, I'm using Siri to capture that information and then put in my time. So I'll say 2 hours. I can also do things like start to record parts that I used. So when we talk about, again, that ease of access, I can just go here and I could say I want to consume a part. And I'll go in and just kind of pick one of these parts here that I know I need for that repair. And I could add quantities. Now what this is doing, in addition to recording that I used this cartridge, it's also going to be communicating that back to the maintain element. And I could actually choose the bin that I pulled it from and the location. So not only am I capturing important cost information, but I'm also using this mobile platform to potentially update my inventory as well. I also have the ability to do many of the same things that you just saw on the mobile app for the track piece, which is add attachments, including a photograph, and as well as being able to access time cards and other important information. In fact, once I'm done working on that work order, it automatically creates a time card for me. So just by entering in my hours on that work order, I'm also simultaneously creating a time card that this mechanic can use to get paid, just like the field log does for the foreman. So I'm now going to submit that field log and send it back to the server. And just like we saw with the track app, being able to send in a field log, that's now automatically available back in the office for anyone who needs it. So that's the mobile app for both track and maintain. What I'm going to show you next is, again, that smart data capture, but from the inform side, which is incredibly powerful and varied. So as we described, inform is really an enterprise data capture solution, but it's very customizable. So I'm simply going to open up a browser, and I'm now inside of B2W Inform. And Inform allows you to create an unlimited number of templates that really allow you to capture data in any way that you want. But again, in that spirit of smarter data collection and data access, these forms are also leveraging the same operations database that both track and maintain are. And you'll see this as we look at some of the forms, but it means that when you're adding new employees or adding equipment into the operations database, you're simultaneously adding them as options for the forms that people fill out in the field. So to give you a sense of how that would work here, I'm just going to go and fill out a form or just show you a couple of forms. So I'm going to tap on Forms here, and it's going to log into, it's just going to ask me for my login real quick here. It also has a little bit of data protection so that if you don't use the system for a while, it will ask you to log back in. And if you're like me with 65 different passwords, that can be a little challenging. Put an exclamation point on there. There we go. I just needed a little bit of more emphasis on my password. So I'm going to log into Forms here, and I'm going to just fill out a form real quick. So I tap on Fill Out Forms, and the system is showing me all the forms that I'm capable of filling out. In other words, all the forms that I'm allowed to see as a user. So I'm going to just show you a couple of examples here. I'm going to show you starting with a job safety form. So this is, again, a form that you can kind of create on your own. We give you your own kind of customized drag and drop layout. And what it'll allow you to do is choose which fields you want to capture. So I'm going to go down here to put a job safety form. These are all the different forms that I have access to. And there's a job safety form. So this is a custom-built form. Oh, Mark has just reminded me that we are taking questions. Thanks, Mark. Let me just pop that questions panel open. Looks like we had a question, and I'll try to answer it here. How does a superintendent or foreman request material needs and equipment needs from the tablet? Oh, that's a really good question. So that actually speaks to the overall operations platform. What you'll see is that there's a piece that we haven't really included as part of this demonstration today called B2W schedule, or today what's called dispatch. But that is another element that's designed to take in needs from other parts of the system. So that is actually something that's on our roadmap. And in the very near future, someone from the mobile app using B2W Track is going to be able to request needs to B2W Schedule, which is the resource scheduling tool. So in other words, I'll be on that same tablet that the foreman use, and I'll be able to say, I need an employee, or I need a piece of equipment, or I need a particular resource of some type, and that would actually be visible in the schedule aspect. In fact, we can do that today. I should have showed this earlier. When I circle back and show you the tablet again, you'll see that we can actually create what are called repair requests today. So even today, I can send requests that go to maintain, and in the future, that will include material needs and equipment needs that go to schedule. So that's a great question. Thanks, Mark. So again, this is an example here of the job safety analysis. So this is a form that we built inside of B2W Inform and have published out so that it could be filled out from essentially any device. I'm filling it out from a tablet, and so it gives me that touch-sensitive screen here where I can just tap on Supervisor and I get a drop-down. Now, I mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. I'm pulling this list of employees from the overall operations database. So I don't have to enter all these employees into Inform, and likewise, the same list of employees could be visible to both track and maintain. The same is true of equipment. I just touch, tap, tap. I can tap things like date, pop the date in. Again, I can leverage Siri to put in a description of work. And I have all these other things that I could fill out, description of the task or job step. I can also create these kind of radio buttons where I can simply go through and select any of these that I want. And as I continue to scroll down, I could also have drop downs with employees here, sign in and sign out. And then if I scroll down further, I can also leverage signature. So if I want someone to sign off, they can actually just use their finger, and I'd be able to capture a signature as well as their name. Also note that when I save that signature, I get a date and timestamp and GPS coordinates. So very powerful data to access once the form has been filled out. So that's an example of one form. I'm just going to ditch that form, and I'm going to show you a different form. So that was again, a job safety form. So that's one potential solution. But I have lots of different solutions that I can create with this. Another one would be an inspection form. So I'm now going to show you a different form, a vehicle inspection form. And remember, all of these are custom designable. So essentially any piece of data that you can imagine capturing, you can simply do that on your own, kind of design it and build it. So I'm going to look at this vehicle inspection report here. Also notice that I can customize it in many different ways that are company specific. So for example, you'll see the logo at the top of the form here when it loads in a moment. You can embed images or pictures that kind of are important to you and make them part of the system here if you want. So this is a different form which also does things like vehicle mileage, last oil change. I can also tap on the job here, and if I do that, I get a list of jobs that would actually come from the operations platform. So that too could be a field that is linked to an operations database. And just a whole other bunch of sections. These forms can be virtually unlimited in size, so you could have multiple pages worth of information. So I'm just going to delete that form as well. Now what I'm actually going to do is fill out what's called an accident form. So this is another example of a form here I'm just going to fill out called an accident form. And it's just a very simple form, but it shows a number of different things at once. Another capability it's going to show is something called alerts and notifications. So when I fill out a form, you actually have the option of telling the system when certain criteria are hit that you want to alert somebody else. So this is both data collection and data access. As a company, I may need to know if anybody has filled out an accident form that has bodily injury associated with it. So I can actually set up alerts and notifications, as well as, by the way, approvals. So you can also make it so that these forms have to be approved by a higher authority. So in this case, I'm saying whenever I submit an accident report, it has to be approved by Rick Sanchez. And I can even save that approval process. So again, access of data, being able to give that to the right person at the right time. So I'm going to go in and say, yep, I had an accident today, and there was bodily injury. And again, I'm going to tap on that list of jobs being pulled from the database. I could put in specifics. I could put in injury details. Again, I could also capture photos or video of the accident, and I could sign off on it as well. Now, once I submit this, I'm now going to get an alert that says, hey, somebody filled out an accident report and there was bodily injury. And so you can set that up to distribute that information to any number of people to make sure that the right people get that immediately. So I'm just going to check. Looks like there's no more questions. I've been a little bit remiss in checking that questions panel. So okay, so I've just received my first alert here. I'm going to bring it up and show you on screen. So this is an email that I received on my other monitor. I'm bringing it over here. B2W Inform Alerts. And it's letting me know that an accident report with bodily injury has been submitted. Now, I received that as an email. You can't see my phone, but I also simultaneously received a text alert for that. So it gives you tremendous ability to spread that information wherever it needs to go, whether it's safety officer in the company or legal or whatever it might be. So Inform is really powerful in terms of getting that data collection spread where it needs to go. What I'm going to do next is actually log out of my, my tablet here just to show you the breadth of devices. I'm also going to fill out that same form from a phone. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually mirroring my phone on screen here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring up a browser. And I haven't used this for a while, so it might ask me to log in again. But I'm going to fill out a form. Now, something important to notice, I'm literally just holding an iPhone 6 here in my hand, but you'll see it's still very visible. And that's because we have a very powerful and new, basically, programming language that will dynamically resize the screen and let me see what I need to see. So if in fact the form needs to be kind of condensed down, it's going to condense it down in a format that the phone will still display in a practical manner. So bear with me just a moment here. There we go. So now that I'm logged in, I'm going to be able to fill out forms. I'm going to go to that same form that you saw me fill out from a tablet. It's only going to show me forms that I'm able to fill out. So I'm going to fill out an accident report form. And I'm going to be able to capture all the same information, including get reports and get alerts and notifications sent out. But just notice here how it's recalibrating the screen so that even from a device as small as a phone, I can still capture all the pertinent information very easily. And that's whether it's an accident report, vehicle inspection report, again, any kind of form that you can imagine. So here I select my accident form, and it'll just take a moment to load up, and then it'll be right on screen. So this is just another method of accessing data that we've shown you here. I've got my approval sequence. Again, I can also just turn the screen sideways if I want to make it more of a portrait or landscape format. Bodily injury, yes. Job where accident occurred, I'll just kind of tap and fill that out. Tap on the employee, and then I'll submit it. But it's the exact same process regardless of the device that I'm using. So that's a pretty good overview of the data capture piece of it. What I'll do now is I'm going to move on, and you'll see there actually there's the text message that I received. So it's a bit of a 2-for-1 here. I can see both submitting the accident report and also see receiving the text message. So that kind of concludes the data capture piece of it. What we're going to do now with our remaining time is circle back and just look at how people can actually leverage that data. Oh, it looks like we do have another question here. Does B2W have a solution for project management items, such as viewing of plans, RFIs, submittals? So the answer to that is yes, to a certain degree. We don't have a custom-built solution that really does RFIs, plans, and submittals, but we do allow you to access attachments. So on the operations platform here, at the job level, as well as on a field log, or even embedded as part of a form, you can actually have an unlimited number of attachments. So I can have plans, specifications, or other documents that are available from the browser. So I can actually say, well, I want to go and look at a job, see all the attachments that have been put against that job, as well as being able to do that on a field log. I wouldn't say it's quite the same as a project management solution, but for a lot of our clients, it is enough information for them to be able to centralize all of those different documents. So good question. So what I'm going to do now is, again, circle back. I'm going to turn off my, my phone, and instead I'm going to go back to the tablet and use the mobile app. And what I'm going to do here is just show you how we can then access and use that information that we collected in the first part of the demonstration. So here's my, my mobile tablet app again on my iPad, and I'm going to access some information. So first and foremost, I can go back in and I'll log out as Gary Adams, and I'll log back in as Tom, the foreman, because there's some pretty powerful job level information as well as some field log level information that people can access. So for example, if I go into a field log, you had seen how I can capture production information, employees, equipment, etc. But I could also do a summary here. I can actually tap and see some data analysis right within the context of a field log. So what I'm looking at here is basically a roll-up of all of the different information that I had on the field log. I can see if, for example, I'm doing as well as or not as well as the estimate. So some pretty powerful kind of information about how I did for the day. But I have information beyond that. So for example, if I have internet access, I can also bring up some job level information from the server. So I'm just going to go and tap on jobs, and I would actually from the field be able to run a report. So I could go, instead of just looking at how I did on one field log on one day, I could tap on a given job, like for example this Fox Hill development job, and I would be able to bring up either reports or dashboards that aggregate data from all the field logs that have been entered against it. So I'm just going to tap on the Fox Hill development job here, and you'll see that loaded up in just a moment, where you can then run either reports or graphic dashboards. So this is a job level dashboard that aggregates from multiple field logs to show me if my tracking accounts or production accounts are either ahead of, on track, or behind what the estimate said they should be. Or again, I could scroll down and run some pretty powerful cost level reports. So for example, if I run this job tracking account cost detail report, I'd be able to see not just like a graphic representation, but also cost level information. So how is this job performing? It's probably a bit of an eye chart here. For each of my tracking accounts, I could see percent complete, as well as estimated versus reported labor cost, equipment cost, materials, even going so far as to see projected cost at completion. So all of that information is immediately available out in the field. So those are just some things that you could get from the mobile piece, say on a job. What I'm going to do now is kind of circle back and show you some things that you can get on the same mobile app, but from the perspective of a mechanic. So again, in the spirit of data access, a mechanic who's going to be working on those work orders might need to get some pretty powerful information about the machine that he's working on. Well, from the field, he can access equipment information. So I could go into a piece of equipment and I could find out things like, what are the specifications of the components, or what's the make, model, and year of the thing that I'm working on. I could even access attachments. So this is kind of circling back to the question, can you have attachments? We can at the job level and field log level. We can even have attachments for equipment. So a mechanic could get a picture of the asset that he's about to work on. Or he might need to access the repair manual for the piece of equipment he's about to work on. So a lot of information that they can simply get, which for many companies right now is essentially a whole series of pieces of paper that are locked into different filing cabinets. Looks like we had another question come in. How do you know if time has been entered for all employees in the job tracking? That's really a good segue, so we'll kind of show that to you. One of the things that we can do is, because we've been entering that time in via a field log or entering it from the mechanic app, I'm going to go back to the server. It's really a good segue for other ways of accessing the data. So I could actually go to a single list here called View Field Logs, and that would show me any of the field logs that have been submitted. So I would be able to see who submitted their time, either from the foreman level, so I could see individual field logs, but I could also run reports across the entire organization at once. So I have many reports that I can access here, including things like show me any employee hours that have been entered, either an employee hours summary or detail. So I could choose to run a report that shows me for the last 30 days or 60 days or the last week or whatever you choose, show me any and all time that's been entered for my employees. So I can see who has and potentially who hasn't filled out their time for a given period. Other things that I could do, again, kind of moving on to the data capture and analysis piece, you've seen how I have access to the data and track by looking at field logs and looking at reports. The same thing holds true in the maintain piece. So if I kind of segue over to the maintain app, I have a very powerful dashboard that aggregates all of the data that's being sent in by my mechanics. So now a mechanic manager, shop manager, would be able to see all the things that are coming in from different parts of the organization, whether it be requests from the field, whether it be work orders. He has a central dashboard to manage that. They'd also be able to see things like the requests that come in individually. So these dashboards let them drill down, show me my unassigned requests, and I'd be able to see just requests that I have to work on. So again, access to the data, but also the ability to analyze it. And the maintain staff also have their own reports to, again, aggregate data that's coming in and make some sense of it. So if I scroll down here to the central reporting area, I have maintain reports. I could do things like show me the cost of my maintenance. So over any period of time that I want, I could look at a piece of equipment and see how many work orders it has, or how many labor hours and cost and parts cost, to get a sense of how those mechanics are contributing to the overall budget. Looks like there's a question that came in. Is there a preferred accounting software that best integrates with B2W? And what is the process to share info back and forth to accounting? Ooh, that's a really good question, because we've talked about centralizing the data in our operations platform, but many clients absolutely want to extend that unification to include their accounting system, which is usually the real deal. The ERP is really driving the true numbers. The short answer to that question is we do integrate with a lot of different accounting packages, and one of the ones that can take the most data and send us the most data is Vista by Viewpoint, but that's certainly not the only option. There's other enterprise vendors that can share data with us. But with that particular vendor, we do have the ability to pull in resources, so employees, equipment, and jobs that are entered into that system can be pulled into ours. We can also send a lot of data to it. It can receive a lot of data from us, and we even have the ability to true up our system from any accounting system, so to pull back actuals through a CSV import. But again, with Viewpoint, we've actually developed a report that allows you to automate that process. So many different options. We integrate with over 24 different accounting packages. Probably the strongest one at this time, although that changes, is Vista by Viewpoint. The last thing I want to show you here with our waning moments is, again, that idea of data access and empowering data decisions from the informed perspective. So just as we had described, you can submit these forms from anywhere, but all the forms are immediately accessible via this browser-based platform. So not only would I be able to look at any of the forms that have been completed and sent in, regardless of how they came in, but I'd also be able to see information across all those forms. So Inform isn't just about designing your own data capture and then capturing it wherever you want, but again, it's all about being able to make sense of that data. So Inform also has the ability to custom create your own reports. So there's a built-in graphic user interface to drag and drop and build reports that pull from any of the forms that you've built. So you saw me submit those accident reports. I can actually just build a report here that shows me instantaneously how many accidents have happened by job. So I don't have to wait for all that paper to come back into the office, to compile it, to have someone else put it into either another system or put it into an Excel spreadsheet. I basically just run a report that shows me, hey, over whatever period you choose, how many different accidents have occurred and what jobs have they occurred on. So I run that report, and now I can see all those accidents, and again, I have a small graph here that shows me which job needs attention, which jobs seem relatively safe. So this really allows you to gather any piece of information you can think of, and then you can leverage that for those profit-driving business decisions. Am I spending enough on safety? Does a given job need more attention than others? Are there other initiatives within the company that aren't being taken seriously by the field or not being recorded by the field? Those are now all things that you can do through all the different mobile platform options that we've described. So we're just about out of time. What I'm going to do at this stage is turn it back to Rich. So Rich, I'm going to turn control back over to you and make you the presenter to see if we have any other questions or any other wrap-up.
So I guess if we had time, we'd go through a couple of examples of case studies. Just as a reference, there's two very good customers of ours, Mortensen and Barrier Construction, that have leveraged what Tom has talked about very effectively. I won't go through those, but we can clearly we have some information about both Barrier and Mortensen available on our website. and the ROI that they're seeing. I think with the last 2 minutes, if there's any other questions, we can run through that. Otherwise, we will wrap up this webinar, and I would leave you guys with just some information about how to contact us if you do have further questions, or if you want to hear more about how we're driving field mobile management and the solutions that we have, and as I mentioned, the reference customers that we have that are leveraging this technology effectively. So Tom, do you see any other questions, or we'll just wrap
I do.
up?
I saw one more question creep in here asking, can you track accidents by trade instead of job? And the answer is absolutely. So that's just another example of a field that you may choose to add to a form, or again, you can leverage some of that data that might already be in the operations platform. It's absolutely possible to say, show me accidents by labor type, for example, foreman versus laborer versus operator, that type of thing. So yes, that would be possible. Another question that just came in, is there a report that B2W can generate to provide a personnel dispatch list? The answer is yes, you can. So that's another aspect of the schedule or dispatch elements, and that's exactly what they're designed to do, is to let you come up with the list of employees and equipment that are being dispatched or scheduled for a certain day. And you could either have that information distributed as a report, but the mobile platform actually lets those two elements communicate. So from the mobile app, a track user could create their daily time card by pulling the assigned personnel and equipment from the dispatch or soon-to-be schedule element to create their time card. So we actually automate that too. That sharing of data is done between schedule and track. Another question, can you create your own reports inside of B2W, or do you need third-party software? Another great question. So for the operations platform, you do not need third-party software. You can create it inside of SQL. So you could use third-party software like Crystal or Visual Studio, but SQL Server itself has the ability through what are called SQL reporting services. So you can simply use that innate SQL tool or third-party software. You can even do things like connect to the database via Excel. So you could create reports via pivot table. And then another question, can you track quantities to a sub-location of a project? You can. One thing that we didn't discuss, but the field log itself also has the ability to create custom properties. So you could, if you wanted to, create a custom field that, for example, lets you put in the sub-location that you want to attribute to quantities. So that would be possible. These are great questions. Oh, looks like we got another one. Follow up on the personnel dispatch question. Are there unlimited users, or is it a user-based license? If user-based, then all employees would not be able to see dispatch list. That is correct. So access to looking at the software, in other words, accessing dispatch or soon-to-be schedule, accessing that directly would require a license. But if you did want to use that report distribution method, so again, I could set up my schedule in the software, and then I could run a report and schedule that to be emailed out. Receiving and opening up a file-based report does not require a license. So you could distribute a report to as many users as you want without a license. If you wanted those users to be able to actually open up schedule or dispatch and look at the information, that would require a license. And I just saw another one pop in here. Second follow-up, can the personnel dispatch be sent via WhatsApp? No, at this time there is no integration with other apps like WhatsApp or any of those other ancillary communication tools. So I'll check for just another moment or two here, but in anticipation of the wrapping up of questions, we're already a little bit over, but I do want to thank everyone for their engagement, and looks like there aren't any other questions so far. So I'll turn this back over to you, Rich.
Yeah, so those are all great questions, and thanks for participating. Hopefully everyone got a lot of value out of this, and I guess stress from a learning objective is as you look to digitize your workflows and go paperless and on the job site, make sure that you think about how you're optimizing workflows with mobile solutions to collect data more effectively, make sure everyone has access, and there was a good question about that, and then ultimately at the end of the day, getting that basically crowdsourced information along with other information back into a format that's structured that can drive business analytics across your project portfolio or for the project team is really important. So make sure you think about all three of these different opportunities and that you're leveraging all three effectively when you go to deploy mobile and change your processes in the field. And with that, I guess we'll wrap up if we don't have any other questions. And again, feel free to contact us. And thank you for joining.